You were talking about your experience feeling burnout in your corporate job.
Yes. So I would commute. It was more than an hour-long train ride out to where I was working. And then I was working a full day. Oh, no, sorry. I would get off the train, go to a bus stop, take the bus to work a full day, go back to the bus stop, bus back to the train back to the city, walk a mile through the city to my night classes. That was from like 6 to 8:30 p.m. And then I would walk another mile home. So incredible cardiovascular shape at the time. But I was so tired. I was just always busy. And when I got home, I had homework or I had something else I needed to catch up on. I was experiencing one of the three types of burnout, which was burnout by volume. The sheer volume of things I was just trying to include was uncomfortable. So there are other types of burnout, and some people are burning out because it's just their job itself that they're at is super toxic. Their workload is super unreasonable. I worked with great people. I had a reasonable workload, but it was just a matter of volume for me. And so I got to the point where I was, very open to getting sick. I got chronic migraines. I was like, a migraine. That means I can't work for the next couple hours because I'm in so much pain. And that was a relief. And that was like a huge red flag to start to look into.
I want to pause on that because I'm getting confused now where I read, because I listened to a podcast you were on too. One of these places, you had talked about that, like wishing you were sick. And I do that where I'm like, I'm going to like manifest getting sick so I can just take a half of day today.
Yeah.
And I'll jokingly say it, but like, I'm really not joking. Like I would love to be wiped out for a few days.
Yeah.
It would be amazing. So that's a really strong sign. And I think a lot of people probably have that and don't connect the dots there. So how did you start to connect the dots?
Well, I mean, at that point I was like, I don't think, because there's a line between burnout and depression. And I've experienced high functioning depression and other seasons of very, very high stress. And just, I knew that there was a difference, and the difference between burnout and depression is circumstance. And if you alleviate like all of the stress, like your circumstances completely change, usually your burnout is completely alleviated. Whereas you could change all your circumstances if you're depressed, and that doesn't mean that the chemicals are going to change in your brain and you're not going to necessarily still experience that depression. So I was like, this isn't quite that, but what could it be that is pretty similar? But I'm also, crying on the train, crying in conference rooms, dreaming about work, like wishing that I could, get out of work by being sick or getting in an accident or something. Like, what is this? And the closest thing I found was burnout. And then from there, I feel like I just I did a ton of market research, talked to a lot of other burned out people to get this kind of modern sense of burnout and what it looks like and feels like and sounds like when people are burned out nowadays.
And that's a framework that you have in your book.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, do you want to like tell me about what your research was like? I find this very fascinating because I worked for a Swedish company in 2018 and 2019, which was, and it's funny because before that I was doing the commute out to Buffalo Grove, which was walk a mile to the train, take the train out to Highland Park. I don't know if you know all these suburbs, but Highland Park, get on a shuttle to go to Buffalo Grove, come back to it. It was an hour and a half to 2 hours each way, each day, 8-hour day, coming home, rinse and repeat, do the same thing. It's exhausting. And so that was very, very relatable. But what I think is so interesting is I started bringing up these feelings in 2018 and 2019, and my coworker at the time, I was at a Swedish company, so it was like 6 of us in the States and like 200 in Sweden, and they have like clinical diagnoses for burnout, which I was like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, there's literally like parts of your brain that stop functioning at the same levels, or those lights dim a little bit, and there's like, they go on leave for it. People go on leave for burnout there. And so I was lucky enough to have that validation that what I was feeling was not, but it really wasn't until COVID. So you even finding other people that had burnout, in 2017, 2016, 2018, whenever that was, that's a pretty daunting task to try and.
Definitely. I mean, I got lucky in that I didn't have a large social following at the time, but I had a large enough social following to ask anybody, hey, do you ever feel these, signs and symptoms? And not necessarily calling it burnout, because again, it was not buzzword.
Yeah.
And then people who are like, yes, I always feel like always have something to do, but I'm not making enough progress, or I am waking up in fight or flight, like thinking about work before I go to sleep, thinking about work the second I wake up, like checking emails before my head even lifts off the pillow type of thing. Don't do any personal care. Don't like, it was a lot of the same and so the methodology that was developed after talking to tons and tons of burned out individuals, these are the 5 areas that I call the pillars of burnout management that everybody consistently like ends up needing to strengthen these skills, or struggles with one of these skills, and that can lead them further from or towards burnout. And that's mindset, time management, stress management, boundaries, and personal care. And usually somebody can hear those 5 areas and be like, oh, it's boundaries. Like for me, like the reason that I'm struggling so much is boundaries. And I don't set them, or I'm uncomfortable setting them, or I'm a people pleaser, so I don't set them, or I'm a high achiever, so I don't set them. And you just kind of start by looking at that framework. And that was what I kind of built around when it came to solutions.
That's so good. I feel like my personal experience and what I've seen other people that I've worked with, like being a leader and stuff like that, the whole work, like our culture is, especially here in the States, having worked for a Swedish company where they take their time. Like you're very rarely going to hear from most of them once they're done working. When they go on vacation, which they take month-long vacations every July, they're gone.
Yeah.
Like it's like cell phones don't work. They're gone. And I learned to sort of admire that and try to like incorporate that into the team, that mentality into the team that I had here in the US, along with the people that I had over in Sweden, because you could just see like the productivity was there, the happiness or contentment was there. Things weren't as contentious among teams. And like I've worked at toxic places, right?
Yeah.
Very toxic places. And even the way that people engage and interact with one another, it's like, it's just not kind. It's not productive. And I think, there's something to be said about a person's sensitivity and stuff. And I'm a sensitive person, so, I can understand. But I feel like we are in this culture, especially since COVID, where it is just like all day, every day you can be working. I find myself doing it. I'm actually pretty decent at boundaries, and it's learned though, not I used to be terrible at them. I'm good at them now. I found happiness. Like you find peace when you start implementing them. But I feel like we just go. And I find myself, I'm like, oh, it's 8:00, right? I've worked my 8-9 hours for the day. It's 8:00. Instead of just sitting down and watching a TV show, which may or may not be something we're going to talk about, but that drive inside me or whatever it is like, well, you could just go like answer a couple emails. That's less to do tomorrow. And I see the cycle and I see myself fall into it.
Yeah.
So where do you even start if you're, you want to assess people, or you want someone to self-assess to find out if they're experiencing burnout, what type of burnout are they experiencing? Like, where can they start? Obviously by the book, but like, how can you start doing a self-assessment to see what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, even just hearing like, you can describe the cycle that you've seen yourself in for years previous. Most people, as soon as they kind of describe their lifestyle or they reflect on their lifestyle, they know if they tend to overfunction and if they feel guilt when they rest and if they prioritize work over some other areas of their life. And like you said, like you stopped doing that as much when you like loved your life and you had other things. Like I love reading. I'm always reading. And that is like actually competes with my work now. And I think everybody needs things that compete with their work. If there's no competition for your work, then obviously you're just going to work by default because it feels like at least there's a purpose behind that. And so if you're looking for a place to start, well, first of all, the 2 types of people who burn themselves out most often are high achievers and people pleasers. And also people who struggle with a victim mentality because, well, I'll go through each of them. High achievers prioritize achievement over most things. And as a result, they can kind of compromise on their quality of life in the name of achievement. They also a lot of times feel in debt to their potential. And so I talk about that when I talk to people who have who are entrepreneurs especially, or who have a platform, or who are influencers or things along those lines, because there's such a sense of debt to the platform or debt to your business, or you could always overfunction, you could always do more, and then as a result you can burn out. So it's a high achieving piece. And then for people pleasers,
Guilty.
it's so easy to do, and there's seemingly a reward for it. And then for people pleasers, they would rather be uncomfortable than make other people uncomfortable. And so they overcommit a lot of times, or they get themselves into situations that they know are not in their best interest, but that they feel like they're kind of obligated to, even though they're the ones telling themselves they should do it. Or maybe other people are telling them they should do it, which is just even worse. That's like a people pleaser's nightmare.
Oh my God, it's so true.
Yeah. And people are everywhere wanting stuff from you. And it's like the bigger you get, the more people want, and the less you have to give, and the stronger your boundaries have to be, or you'll get eaten alive, like you'll drown in the sea of opportunities. And then the last one's victim mentality. And that is just kind of feeling like, I've tried solutions before and they didn't work, and my life just sucks, and this is just what it is. So I'm going to stop trying. And I've seen so many people who are in
How
really
do people
bad
function like
jobs.
that, though?
I know. You know what? For some people, at least it's something. Like they'd rather feel something than nothing, and it's kind of just become part of their
It's
personality.
like abusive relationship with yourself.
Yeah.